My name is Peter Molnar. I'm currently a PhD at Occupational and Environmental Medicine at the University of Gothenburg, Sweden. We've been able, working with some models and the emission database, to model yearly average data on NOx levels on a 50 x 50 meter grids in Gothenburg. We would like to look at a 30-year period between 1975 and 2004 to look at the changes in NOx levels, which are then mainly coming from the harbor area and the local traffic. There are some areas where you have an increase over time, but that's mostly the major highways. Otherwise, most areas have been a moderate to, I would say, significant reduction in 35–40%. In NOx levels over this year, 30-year period. If you look at car traffic as the major source, then we can see that we have a net increase over all streets in Gothenburg, about 20%, with a reduction in the city center, while if you look at the city border traffic, it's an increase in 140%. That means that the total amount of cars going to and from Gothenburg has increased dramatically. In the combustion processes, when the ultrafine particles are created, or gases which actually transfer to ultrafine particles, then you have the NO, nitrogen monoxide, which is then oxidized to nitrogen dioxide. You can use the relation, the ratio between NO, nitrogen monoxide, and NO2, nitrogen dioxide, as an indication of the freshness of the pollutant when it comes to combustion and traffic sources. NOx as a general correlates fairly well with ultrafine particles. Ultrafine particles are particles with diameter smaller than 100 nanometers. They are really, really tiny. It is well known that you have a reduction in the concentration away from the highway, but you also have a lot of difference in the near road concentration depending on various meteorological conditions, wind speed, wind direction, temperature. You have much higher concentrations generally during the morning rush hour than in the afternoon. In the morning you have a more stable condition, not so much of mixing, while in the afternoon, when the sun has come up, a bit warmer, a bit more wind, you have a stronger mixing, which means that you have a quicker dilution. When you look at the ultrafine particles and the effects from a nearby road, near the road you have fairly high concentrations, which have been in roughly 100 meters, they have been reduced to maybe 30–50% of the roadside, but going further away to, for instance, about 1 kilometer away, it's usually not evident if you don't have other sources nearby. The vertical profiling of the air pollution is also a key question. If we have a road in an open area with a few houses, then it's not that important the height, because the higher up you are, the further away you are. If you're in a city with street canyons, on the one side of the street you could have really high concentrations way up on the 10th, 15th floor, while on the other side it's much cleaner. But the next day could be the opposite, and that depends on the meteorology and wind parameters. Meteorology has a big impact, and of course the seasons. In many places, not the least in Gothenburg, we have occasionally morning inversion, ground level inversion. That means that we have a lid on top of the city. Maybe it's on the order of 200–300 feet above ground level. That means that everything which is emitted underneath this lid stays under the lid, and the concentrations builds up very quickly. This inversion usually, at least in Gothenburg, moves away during the early hours in the afternoon. But sometimes, when you have a really stable winter condition, it could stay for a couple of days, and you can reach levels which you would expect to find in the metropolitan cities in Southeast Asia, for instance, but not in Scandinavian countries. There are other things that apply for Scandinavian countries. For instance, we have mandatory studded tires during the winter season, and studded tires create a lot of particles with the friction on the roadside. One of the key issues if you want to look at long-term improvement in the city is that you have to work together with different actors. You have to have the scientists helping people to understand what is important. You have to have the city officials who actually has to decide what to do. You have to have the different companies, industries which are working in the city area to work together. This is a living document in a way of speaking, because if you have a new residential area, you need to fix that area into the transportation system. You maybe need to have a new tram line, new bus line. You have to have the new area being a commuting area. In the case of Gothenburg, we have tried to work with our historical paths in a number of ways. When you have an older city or a city which actually has sort of settled down with its sort of unique structure, there's only so much you can do with changing the major highways. You have to look into the situation not in 5 years, but maybe in 20 or 25 years. How will the city look in 25 years, and plan for that. One thing that needs to be sort of put up onto the table is that air pollution, even in clean environments, actually affects your health. There are no known lower limit to what is a threshold. Below here, we don't see any ill effects. We don't have any sort of no risk level. That is very important to know, that even if your city or your country or your state is better than the neighboring, you still have health issues with the air pollution. Air pollution is a complex thing that affects us even at low levels. We need to make sure that we understand how the levels change and the reason behind that, because air pollution is transboundary. It doesn't feel any state, city or national borders. It just travels where the wind takes it.